few weeks ago, I was with my daughter in a mall, and she had a pie and she sat down on the floor to eat the pie. And I told her, there's a sign here that says you're not supposed to do that here. Can we get out? Can we go eat the pie somewhere else? And she just didn't pay any attention. She was focused on the pie. After a little bit, a security guard came up to me and said, "You have to go away from here, blah blah blah, can't be here." And I looked at her on the floor, and I thought about how much effort it was going to be to get her moving. And so I said to him, "Can you say that to her? Can you just explain to her why we have to move?" And he was a bit uncertain. He wasn't sure if he could do that. And after a little bit, it became clear that he wasn't sure if he could do that in English. And so I assured him, this was all in Portuguese, and I assured him that her Portuguese is better than mine. So she would understand if he explained, if he just doesn't need to dumb it down or anything. If he just gives her the explanation, then she'll understand. So he did. He squatted down and he gently spoke to her. I didn't hear what he said, but he was speaking in a gentle way for 30 seconds, and then she stood up and she came along with me. I really appreciated that he was willing when I asked him to treat her as an individual. And that's not always what we see. This week I was in a long distance bus with the family for 3 hours, and at some point she's just been stuck in a bus for a while, and so she starts to get hyper. She kicked the seat in front of her. We were telling her, "Please don't kick the seat in front of you." And she came and sat on my lap for a while, and she was wriggling about. She wanted to go back to her seat, and then she kicked it again. And the person in front of her asked the person next to her to ask me to ask her to stop. And so it's third-hand information, and it's usually second-hand. It's usually someone asks me to get them under control, and so it's still me reporting what someone else has said. But in this case, it was me reporting what someone else had said to someone else, and obviously there's a level of development that they'll reach where they understand and won't do that. But at this stage, it's it used to just be when they're really little, you can't control them, but you can pretty much tell them something and they'll believe it. But then there's a stage of awareness and understanding after that where they're realizing the difference between something I'm saying from me versus something that's reported from someone else. And it makes sense to value direct information more highly than second-hand or third-hand. And if you're doing like some Bayesian reasoning, you're putting every time a message is passed on, you're putting a multiplier on it to say this is less likely to be worth responding to. And yeah, they haven't got those multipliers set right yet, but they're another woman on the bus came to me and said, can you, your child's being loud, can you get him, she said, assuming a gender, like, whatever, under control. And like, clearly, like, at this point I was exhausted and had been trying, and like everyone around knew that we'd been trying, and like, I don't know, like, I guess this person had headphones on, but whatever. I just said to her, like, you can go and ask her yourself, and like, she got angry and shouted at me rather than, I was like, no, you can, like, I'm not the person who's bothering you. Like, and it's good that people check with the parents first about bringing things to the children. Like, someone was saying, came and asked me, like, I've got a chocolate milk, can I give this to your child? And it's like, no, because then she'll be hyper and won't go to sleep, and it'll just be really difficult. But thanks. It's like that kind of thing. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's like people like come to me and say, like, we want that behaviour to change. Me too. And yeah, I don't mind if they ask me to say something to her, but like, when I clearly have already and it hasn't worked, like, you can just offer to say something yourself, because then it's direct. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that the same as in the situation as a security guard, if she'd then gone directly to the child and said, hey, that's bothering me, can you do something different? Like, it would have been like interesting enough to her that she would have been, oh, okay, that's new information, I'll update based on that. Yeah, like, how must it feel to always have people talking about you but never addressing you? It's really dehumanizing. Yeah. I mean, sometimes with babies people do the opposite. Like, they'll come to the baby and like not talk to the parent and talk to the baby and go, oh, yeah, you little thing, oh, you don't have any socks on, you should have some socks on, it's cold. Like, but yeah, like, as a way of trying to get at the parent and say, like, I don't think you're doing the behaviour that you should be doing. Which is rude. I think they only do that while they think the child's not capable of understanding or responding. Because they don't want to actually, in both cases, they don't want to actually treat them as a human person. Because, like, yeah, it's rude to the parent to ignore them and say something to the child that's not actually to the child, but is directed at trying to tell the parent to do something different. And it's equally rude to the child to be coming up to them and be like, oh yeah, as though they're going to connect to them, but they're not actually talking to them. Be saying something that's meant for the parent, like this. And children understand words a long time before they can form them, and not everyone realizes this. But yeah, so they're sort of assuming that the child's not really taking it in, but they probably are. And it's just like confusing and disappointing. Like, oh, there's a person come to connect with me. Oh no, they're not. Yeah. The woman on the bus. Yeah, and then she was like, rah, 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 you're not controlling your child, you're responsible. I have children too, I don't let them make noise on a bus. And so my wife said to her, great, so what do you do? Please, we haven't figured out how to correctly handle this situation. You say you have this experience. Teach me what you do. And she just went off in a huff. So, yeah, it did not convince me that she did actually know how to handle that situation. Or perhaps, like, she wasn't comfortable disclosing the methods that she used, which, yeah, like a lot of us, our parents' generation still, like, believed that physical violence was an acceptable and effective way of teaching children, and I don't think it's either. I don't think it's acceptable, but I don't think it's effective. Like, maybe you can get them to freeze up in fear enough that they're not going to do anything, but it's not teaching. It's, yeah. And then some other people on the bus started having a go at her, saying you're being an embarrassment. Like, they've got a baby like, babies are loud sometimes. Why are you making a fuss? She said, it's not a baby, it's a large child. We said, well, she's 4, and she kind of, yeah, like our children are quite large for their age, especially in Portugal. Just the Portuguese like phenotype is generally shorter, so it's yeah, it leads to them just being taken for older than they are, and that generally means more is expected of them than can be reasonably. Yeah, so this woman was assuming she was like 6 and she's 4, and like people do know that there's different levels of responding to requests that you can expect. But yeah, it felt nice that there were other people on the bus who were like, not exactly on our side, but you know, everyone minded. But you know, minding with us rather than like expecting something to be done about it. And I'm not really yet like even if people are okay with things better when they know what the actual ages are. I'm not really okay with that, because obviously like people develop differently, and there are adults who even adults and certainly older children who just have some developmental factor that's at a different rate. And I guess a lot of the time people just respond to that by not taking those people out in public, which is sad. Anyway, it's not always screaming and kicking. Like, there's a lot of times they have absolutely delightful interactions with the people around, and yeah. just don't know what it's going to be. And so you just have to take your chances. and, yeah, often when there's something that's a little bit disruptive, all you need to do is listen to them and maybe find out what they need, or maybe all they needed was to be listened to. And having this expectation from other people around to keep them under control or whatever, make that really hard to get into their headspace for. Just like someone screaming, like what I would do at home if there's no one else around is just like really, hey, like hear them, feel them, accept them as they are, accept them screaming, and then like 5 seconds later they come and said what they need, and like run off doing something nice. But it's really hard for me to connect with that level of presence when I know there's someone there looking at me, like giving eyes, like, hey, are you gonna shut them up now? Like, and then I'm like trying to connect and find out if they actually need something, or if they're just tired, or what, and like being aware that people are, yeah, and then yeah, it can be like contradictory. Like if I just like completely accept that they might just be screaming for the next half hour, then they'll probably stop in a few seconds. But if I really, really want them to stop in a few seconds, you know what's going to happen?